News Channel 5 Network, this is MorningLine with Nick Beres.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. Nick Beres coming to you on this Wednesday. A good show, as we've been doing this week. We're bringing on various guests to discuss the issue of gun violence and what some of the solutions may be one way or the other. We're going to open up the phone lines, and you can join in the conversation as you watch us here on the Plus, which is great. We're also streaming live on Facebook at newschannel5.com. So I'll be monitoring our coverage of that as it's on. I've got a little computer here, so if you want to make comments there, I'll share them with our guest as well, but you can call in. And our guest is John Harris with the Tennessee Firearms Association. Good morning, John.
Good morning.
Good to see you again. It's been a while. You're a busy guy.
And it's been a few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, well, he's an attorney, and obviously you are involved as a volunteer and kind of the executive director of the Tennessee Firearms Association, which, by the way, for folks who don't know, how would you define that for them? It's kind of self-explanatory, but what is it?
It's an advocacy group that monitors, reports on, and helps legislators understand the parameters of the policy-making issues that they're dealing with.
Okay.
And at the same time, we have increasingly over the last few years started funding and getting involved in litigation, for example, against cities that are violating Second Amendment issues as defined by the legislature.
Okay, so you'll lobby sometimes at the legislature and be involved with that, and you'll come on programs like this, and certainly a lot in the news, and we're going to take phone calls, and it's a constant issue, of course, but you know, of course, what happened at the Waffle House, and people still talking about it, and the suspect in that case, I won't use his name, and we're not going to show his picture, because you know what? I don't want to give any of these guys any more publicity than they, you know, sometimes you wonder if they do it to get attention, but he's going to be in court soon, and I want your take up front on this. A lot of people right now, we know we have that suspect in custody, okay, and he's going to be dealt with. The question of how he ended up with the weapons he had, and I know it's confusing because there's state laws and federal law involved, but a lot of people wondering, should his father be charged for returning, you know, these weapons, one of which was used in the shooting?
Well, I mean, I think I'll say this. Yeah. There's a possibility that Dad could be charged, okay? But we don't have, at least publicly, enough facts to know the answer to that. And I'll give you an example. In Tennessee, we don't have a card requirement that you have to have in order to buy a gun.
They have that in Illinois.
They have that in Illinois. In Tennessee, though, we do have a card requirement, a permit requirement, if you want to carry a gun in general in public, the permit. Yeah. The standards to get a permit are higher. So, for example, DUIs can keep you from getting a permit in Tennessee if you have enough of them, but they won't stop you from buying a gun.
Okay.
And we don't know why he lost his permit to buy a gun in Illinois based on the facts that are out now, nor do we know if Illinois' permitting law with respect to ownership had standards like Tennessee does. It would say things like a DUI that's, you know, less than 5 years old would be disqualifying. What we do know is, as a general rule, once the son left Illinois, whatever Illinois' rules were that may have been higher no longer applied to him.
That's right.
So when he came to Tennessee, and I think TBEI has said, you know, at least preliminarily, that they don't see any reason why he would have been ineligible to buy a gun here.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like the issue will be Tennessee. It'll either be a federal issue or something in the state of Tennessee, Illinois,
that's correct.
I think that would be the case as it plays out. So with regard to the weapons and the father, what was intriguing to me was that somehow, some way, after he had an incident at the White House, Secret Service, they look at his background, and the sheriff there in Illinois is saying, well, you know what, they're recommending that he not have the weapons anymore. And so instead of confiscating the weapons, and these are expensive, valuable weapons, the sheriff says, okay, we'll give them to the father.
Right.
Is that typical in terms of it's a property issue maybe, and they're like, look, these guns, and maybe the father says, well, look, these are family guns, it's my son's guns, but I'll take them and hold them. It seemed like it was just a handshake agreement, but is that the way it is? You can't just take the guns away, and they decided, well, let's just agree, the father will take them, not give it to him, and move on?
That's not uncommon. Under Tennessee law, if he had committed in Tennessee a crime with the gun, if he robbed a bank or shot some people, okay, that particular gun then becomes evidence in a crime, and it is forfeited if he's convicted.
Right.
So they can take that one. But the conviction of a felony, if he had other guns that he owned, they don't automatically get seized by the government. He has to dispossess. He has to get rid of them.
Yeah.
And so that's maybe what happened in Illinois.
Okay.
But you know, I've not heard, as you said, the incident at the White House. There's an incident, but I've yet to hear that he was criminally convicted in any way for doing that.
There was somebody, the Secret Service got him. And, you know, there's all kinds of incidents at the White House all the time with people trespassing, going where they shouldn't.
Yeah.
Most of the time they get a slap on the wrist because a lot of times they don't know what they're doing. That can be confusing up there if you've been there. But yeah, you're right. So more to come on that. All right, the larger picture here as we continue to talk about it, and as we did earlier this week, was, all right, the issue here, he goes in, you know, police say, and shoots up the Waffle House, killing the 4 people, and he has that weapon. Again, there were red flags galore. Now, I know you're a strong gun rights advocate, and, you know, there are those who are going to say, well, shoot, did he really have to have an AR-15 or whatever the type of weapon it was that he had, an assault-style weapon, whatever they're calling those. But the other issue is, you know, how does this guy, with all these red flags, still have weapons? And, you know, I just worry. I guess he'd never really been convicted, but there'd been cases before. Everyone knew this guy had a screw loose. All right?
Well, that's true. And under federal and most state laws, it's a continuum. So it's not the first traffic ticket you lose your rights. It may not even be a misdemeanor, and it might not even be some felony convictions.
Yeah.
So you can have a criminal history, either violent or nonviolent, particularly if it's a low-grade misdemeanor, and still not lose the ability to own or buy a gun.
Yeah.
You know, we see it a lot with monetary crimes, writing a bad check. You know, most people would say, well, that doesn't make them violent. That doesn't make them likely to be violent. It's once they cross that line into violence. And the only misdemeanor count that really triggers a disqualifying factor is domestic violence. So you could beat up 2 people just as bad, hurt one, put them in the hospital, but they're a drinking buddy, and it'd be charged as a misdemeanor, and it wouldn't impact your rights. You could have the exact same injury with a spouse or an adult child that lives with you, and you would lose all the rights. So it's very much a continuum, and not every red flag is going to be a prohibiting flag.
You're right. So with what you know, I know there's a lot that we don't know about this incident, but I mean, you think there could have been things done to prevent it? I mean, as you look at it, you say, oh, well, right there, and shoot, why did that happen? Or is it that, you know, these things are just going to happen?
Well, I think this is the tough one, because we don't know that he had criminal convictions that, as a matter of law, would have prohibited him, because TBI says it looks like he could buy guns. Yeah. On the mental health side, not every mental health condition is one that is a predictor of violent proclivities.
Great point. Most people who do suffer from mental, it doesn't mean they're going to be violent.
Well, Miracle on 34th Street, you know.
Right, there you go. That's a good example. You can be Santa Claus. So, I mean, you're right. That's the problem. You can't just say, well, you have mental illness. That doesn't mean you're going to be violent, and there's all scope of those.
And sometimes mental illness is temporary, like depression after the death of a spouse or a child. Sometimes it's chronic, long-term, and lasting, and you're never going to get over it. The other problem is with mental health, he may have been functioning with his prior history at low levels of delusions, you know, paranoia, whatever, but not necessarily a violent propensity ever having been exhibited. And we don't know, and we don't have the ability, and we may never have the ability to be able to predict when someone with a mental health propensity crosses the line from benign to violent. We can't see when that switch is going to flip.
Right. Listen, we're going to take a break on that. And when we come back, we get some calls and comments from you on Facebook. Again, we're streaming live on Facebook at newschannel5.com. John Harris with the Tennessee Firearms Association, taking your phone calls, questions, and comments. When we come back we'll talk more about what lawmakers are looking at one way or the other, what you support, what you don't, and let you respond to some of our callers. We'll take a break, be back with more right after this.